guys, welcome back to our Unit 2 of the AP Psychology course series. I'm lecturer Youlan, and yeah, this is a new unit, and we'll have a lot of videos that will talk about this because it will come up in the multiple choice section and both FRQ and MCQ section a lot. So pay attention to this unit. Okay, so let's so from the College Board, what you want the structures of the brain. The human biological systems and their functions influence our behavior and mental processes. Some psychologists study behaviors and mental processes from a biological perspective. This includes an examination of the influence that the interaction between human biology and our environment has on behavior and mental processes. Remember, the keyword, the interaction between human biology and environment. This is a recurring topic throughout the course that will be used to explain many psychological phenomena. And also, this biological perspective provides insight into the causes of and treatments for psychological disorders. There's a complex interaction between a person's biology and their behavior and mental processes. Heredity and environment play a role, as do variations in a person's consciousness. So there are two guiding questions that will please carry out when we are learning this unit. 1. How can biology influence our behavior and mental processes? 2. What happens when a particular neurotransmitter is absent from the body? 3. How do biological and environmental factors interact to influence our behaviors and mental processes? So, Unit 2 focuses on studying the physical or biological basis for behavior and what can alter it. And we study the brain-body systems, genetics, consciousness, sleep, and drugs. All of these factors influence our behavior and mental processes. What psychology is. And this unit comprises 8 to 10% of the AP exam for psychology. Sorry, these are not on the slide, but there are some key psychologists that you need to know. But yeah, they will come up in a later as we go through the course. So the first one is Charles Darwin. As you all know, Darwin is known for his principle of natural selection and his other contributions to evolution. He established the idea that all species of life come from the same ancestor. And then we have Paul Broca. Paul Broca discovered Broca's area in the brain, which is the area that that's really important for language, and processing, not processing, yeah, and is associated with language and speaking. And then we have Carl Wernicke, and Wernicke studied nerves, disease, and parts of the brain. He discovered Wernicke's area, which is like the opposite, or like it works together with the Broca's area, and it's essential in understanding language and speech. And then we have Roger Sperry. Roger Sperry was one of the few key psychologists to claim that we have two brain hemispheres, and each has its own specialized functions. He studied split brain patients and conducted experiments to learn more about each half of the brain. He actually won a Nobel Prize for his research, which is really significant and recognize his work. And then we have Michael Gazzaniga. Gazzaniga helped with the understanding of lateralization. He also worked with split brain patients to advance his research and began to understand how the two hemispheres of the brain work together. Our second last one is William James. James coined the term stream of consciousness. He is considered the father of American psychology. And finally, we have Sigmund Freud. Freud is the father of psychoanalysis and studied many areas of psychology through his psychoanalytic perspective. For this unit in particular, he came up with 3 levels of consciousness: the conscious, preconscious, and the unconscious. Yeah, so those 5 points were 2.1 to 2.5 will be covered in this unit 2. So today we'll be focusing on 2.1, interaction of heredity and environment. And the sources I use are Fiveable and Barron textbook to prepare for this presentation. So there are some key vocab for this unit. Number 1, biological psychology, chromosomes, genome, molecular genetics, epigenetics, evolutionary psychology, behavior genetics, DNA, identical or monozygotic twins. 10, heritability, natural selection, environment, genes, fraternal or dizygotic twins, interaction, and mutations. Okay, let's continue. So in this key topic, it's important to remember that the environment is every external influence that exists. The environment can often influence religion, politics, and our morals. And usually humans have 46 chromosomes, which is 23 pairs in each cell. But if there are mutations for like genetic deficits when you are born, there could be less or more chromosomes than 46. And these chromosomes are structures made up of DNA that contain our genes, which are studied in this chapter. There are both expressed and active genes and inactive genes, which depends on your environment. And the genome is all of the genes that make up an organism. Okay, now we have heredity and the environment. An essential question that faces psychologists is the nature versus nurture debate, which we covered a little bit in Unit 1. So please check the videos out if you haven't watched that yet. Are we more influenced by our genes and heredities or by our experiences? Experiences is the nurture part, and nature is genes and heredity because we can't really change it. Biological psychologists in particular are interested in studying the links between our biological, such as mutations, chromosome pairs, DNA, genes, entire human genome, processes, and psychological processes. One group of behavioral psychologists, behavior geneticists, are interested in studying the power and limits of genetic and environmental influences on behavior. To do this, we may look at mutations, chromosome pairs, DNA genes, or even the entire human genome to see where many differences can come into play. Another important way that psychologists can study the influence of nature versus nurture is through twin and adoption experiments or studies. If we're able to study identical twins that were separated at birth, we can compare and contrast them. Because they are like twins, so they don't have any difference in their genetic makeup. So they have the same nature, but the environment that raised them up could have a huge influence on like their personality and etc. So a lot of biological psychology study the difference between like twins who were separated when they were first born. Yeah, so like they share the same prenatal environment, but one may receive slightly better nourishment and care. A famous study conducted by Thomas Bouchard, Bouchard, found that the IQ of twins living separately after birth had environment that had some effect on IQ, but is still heavily influenced by genetics. The twins raised separately also showed similar physical characteristics, showing that effective psychological environment or physical similarities causing others to treat the twins in similar ways, which is a key player in deciding likeliness. And the contrast to identical or monozygotic twin is fraternal or dizygotic twins, and they develop from different fertilized eggs. Identical twins is kind of more important, I would say, like in the exam section. We can also use heritability to understand the variations that exist between individuals being studied. Heritability basically tells us how much of the variation that exists between a group of individuals is due to genetics. Heritability is not the amount of or percent of a given trait that is inherited. It's instead an explanation of the differences that exist between us related to genetic factors. There are also molecular geneticists that study the molecular structure and function of genes and how they play the role in our behavior. They find genes that allow us to have traits such as body weight, sexual orientation, and extroversion, and attempt to find out what specific genes influence each of these behaviors. When discussing the nature versus nurture debate, it is really important to note that both play an important role in our development or like our individual development of behavior. The interaction of both factors is of particular relevance to those studying epigenetics, like those scientists look at how the environment influences how our genes are expressed without an actual change in DNA. Just some quick like outside notes, like what usually causes change in DNA are like mutations, and those mutations could be happening because of like UV light, like the sunlight, if they're like so much burn on your skin, or like you're exposed to some really like deadly or like hazardous chemicals, etc. Okay, come back. Genetics give you a foundation of who you are, but the environment shapes you into the person you are. The change between the foundation and who you really are is studied by epigeneticists. These environmental changes explain why a child in a family is different, despite their same genetic background. Life experiences lay down epigenetic marks, which are mesomolecules that can block the expression of a gene. Epigenetic marks are an example of changes in genes without an actual change in DNA. Mutations, by the way, as we mentioned previously, are random errors that occur during gene replication that lead to a change. And finally, we have evolution. Evolutionary psychologists focus on the principles of natural selection, which is the principle developed by Charles Darwin to explain our behavior and the mind. This principle states that we're more likely to inherit and pass along traits that have been vital to our survival as a species. Okay, now we have the biopsychosocial approach. You find this really interesting because biopsychosocial actually combines three words together, which is biological, psychological, and social. So yeah, as the name suggests, you can see like it's basically suggests like our individual development are supported or comprised by three: biological, or like genes; psychological, gene expression, beliefs; and socio-cultural, which are like peer influence and peer pressure, and they all play a vital role in our individual development. And those psychosocial psychologists believe that the rules we use to view the world affect our way of thinking and behaving. Moreover, biological and social influences are equally responsible for our decision. An example of how extroversion might be explained, it could be explained by genetic tendency, or how the person was conditioned to be extroverted, which is like social condition, and also how was conditioned, which is like their psychosocial, like they think in their mind that it's better to act this way, or blah 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 blah. And then we have social pressures like conformity, and this is the social part. So here comes the end of our unit 2.1, which is the interaction of heredity and environment. So hope you enjoyed it, and if you haven't checked it out, please watch my previous videos on unit 1, and we covered basically about like the scientific foundation of psychology, and we talked about like statistics and etc. And yeah, so thank you for listening.